So hello, everyone. So excited to be here today with Jesse. Jesse and I were actually on a panel recently together, and I was blown away by her story. And I am so excited to have this opportunity to have this conversation with her and for her to share her experiences, her story with you. And so Jesse's the founder and CEO of a thriving video production company, Modern Muse Media, that trains businesses on how to create and use social media video for effective marketing. So welcome, Jesse. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And what I realized is missing in that introduction bio that I sent is that we are an all-female video production team, but we'll get to that.
Ooh, okay. Well, I can't wait to hear. So Jesse, the theme of the podcast is My Dead Dragon. And really and truly, we're talking about how you came to realize that you needed to be the heroine of your own story. If you had a wake-up call, what was that? What did that look like? And what your advice is, what your process was, what you would want to share with other women who are going through the same journey. So start us off with your shirt, which I love. And for the audio people, it says, "What's your story?" So Jesse, what's your story?
I have many. There are many chapters to my story. In fact, there is a book in progress, but let's start at the point where I definitely needed to reinvent myself. Actually, we're going to back up and just have a bit of a Coles Notes preface. So from a very young age, I was shooting videos with my cousins on my grandma and grandpa's VHS camcorder. I was about 10 years old doing commercials and music videos. I always had a passion for storytelling and video, particularly. When I went to high school, I did an aptitude test and it said broadcast journalism. So I proceeded to attend NAIT at 17 years old and graduated at 19, starting my career in the biz.
Wow.
And I had a wild ride. I jumped right into the deep end, didn't do any of that traveling abroad stuff that I'm slated for. It's on the list. But I did get a really great kickstart on my career, and I was very hungry and very passionate, and still am, about what I do. I'm really, really blessed that way, in that I just love what I do every single day. And so I've done everything from oil and gas videos in Fort McMurray to corporate videos to entertainment reporting on camera for City TV. And I did educational content for Access Television, for those who know Channel 9 on the dial with the rabbit ears. I'm dating myself. Really have done and seen it all, other than feature film, which is on the list as well. The last 8 years of my career in the quote unquote industry, in the biz, I was an award-winning television producer. I was co-executive producer on a series called Blackstone, which is very well known across Canada, especially in Vancouver and Toronto, where we were beating out shows like Stargate SG-1 and up against shows like Rookie Blue and Saving Hope and Orphan Black.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Wow.
It was a wild ride. Walking red carpets, had gowns designed for me, showing up in limos and town cars. It was the life. And at that time, I was in partnership, both in work and life, with the executive producer of the show. And we were together for many years, blended a family, and we're on this wild ride and adventure together. What I didn't realize at the time, and what I see now, is that it was a very codependent relationship. And that was something that was common for me, now that I'm able to reflect and look back. And in the 5th and final season of the show, everything came to a head with a whole bunch of things that I'm actually not allowed to talk about, which left me without a phone, a car, and a career. I did have my home, because at that point I had moved out and was living where I'm actually am now, a place slated safe haven. And I did have my home to come home to, but nothing else.
Wow.
And so I was stripped of everything, including my identity, because at that time, Jesse was her career. I had been through the death of my mother at a very young age due to breast cancer, 2 divorces, and had this little beautiful girl
Mm.
who I was taking care of on my own. And I had nothing. At this point now, when I look back, I can see I had everything, but it
Oh,
took a while to get there.
wow. Wow.
So in a moment, and that moment that we're talking about is that release of that dead dragon. In a moment of ugly crying on my kitchen floor to my left, I needed to reinvent myself. I
Mm.
needed to recreate my world, and I needed to start a new chapter in my story.
Mm.
And it was with the help of a mentor who reached her hand through the phone to pull
Mm.
me up off of that kitchen floor. And what had happened is, at the time, I was vice president of Women in Film and Television of Alberta, WIFTA.
Mm.
And this woman, Susan Fenema Leonard, who is the founder and owner of People in Peaks Productions in Grand Cache, she was this beautiful human being who was moving into the position of, sorry, let me backtrack. I was on the board of Women in Film
Okay.
and Television of Alberta, and she was moving into the role of president.
Mm.
And so I had called her that day to say, I'm no longer in the industry. I don't even want to be connected to the industry because of all of the
Mm.
trauma that had occurred. I'm stepping
Mhm.
away. And she said, you have over 20 years of experience that you can help our organization with. You can mentor young women. There is so much that you can give. I think it would be a great idea for you to start your own production company, provide women with opportunities. And by the way, you're now vice president of WIFTA. And I was like, okay, I can do that.
Wow.
So that's what started Modern Muse Media, my company. And it has been 5 years and a wild ride.
Mm.
I knew nothing about running a business. I knew nothing about bookkeeping and accounting. I ran a television series with over 300 cast and crew that had departments of people that handled all of these different things. I'd never done anything like this. I had my expertise and a very, very damaged ego. So
Mm.
not really truly believing in that expertise.
Mhm.
But I crawled up off that kitchen floor and I just did it. I did it. I started the company and they were my first client. And I worked with them to do some mentoring and training and executive producing on some of their projects, working them through some of the business affairs and mentoring and the budget stuff and whatever they needed. And it grew from there.
Mm.
But it was funny because you mentioned that we were on a panel recently together and we were talking about a seat at the table for women. And
Mhm.
there was one woman who said, well, if there isn't a chair, just bring your own chair to the table. And I was like, yes. And then I thought about it and I was like, actually, I built my own damn table and then put the chairs around it for other women to sit
Mm.
at. And so for 5 years, we have been exclusively an all-female production team, providing opportunity for women in the industry that I saw a huge lack of in my many years of experience in the camera departments, the editing departments, the lighting departments, sound, holding the equipment, using the equipment, doing the skills that they are so good at, but really intimidated by to even
Mm.
broach because the industry is so male dominated. We're seeing a
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
here we are.
oh my goodness, Jesse, like, so I knew you a little bit, but I had no idea of the magnitude, the complexity, the richness of your story. And truly, I have been on the kitchen floor. I know what that is like. I know what that's like, where everything that you've known has broken down. And in that moment, there's that choice. Who am I going to show up as?
Mm.
And so in your case, I love that it lined up and you had this amazing mentor and woman who said, hey, girl, get yourself back up. You've got too much to offer, right? You are not defined. Maybe you shouldn't use this language, but you are not defined by this particular piece of your story. And so what advice would you have for other women who are navigating this journey, and maybe they're realizing like, oh, like I have some codependent tendencies, which I can also identify with that. Or maybe they're on the kitchen floor, or maybe they've fallen down on the kitchen floor a couple of times, right? And they're kind of in that process. So what advice, looking back, would you give to yourself during that journey? And what advice would you have for other women?
I'm going to tell you that I have fallen on the kitchen floor multiple times myself, and that those floor falls are truly a gift from God, from the universe, from whatever your belief system may be, as they are an opportunity to rebuild and regrow. And I don't like to use the word start over, because we're never really starting over. We are moving forward or rising up from a place of this wealth of knowledge and learning. And so it's only up from the floor fall, from the face plant. There's only up from there, and that it is temporary. And in time, one will see that as an opportunity rather than the end of the world, which sometimes it can feel like. So I don't want to emotional bypass either, in that those feelings are valid. And it is temporary. And there are solutions, there are people to help, there are people to support, even if that's not clear, even if you can't see that through that haze in that moment, there are. And the advice is to ask for help. That is something I've had to learn the hard way, even over this past 5 years. In about year 2, 3, I faced massive burnout. It was an incredible debt and in my company, and I was hospitalized for pneumonia. I almost lost my business, and I actually needed to ask my dad for help, which was extremely humbling, because I'd never asked my dad for anything, including lunch money.
Wow.
And so there was this big shift that occurred, that I had to take the cape off, that I had to reach out to a bookkeeper or some kind of accounting and like have a full disclosure, because this wasn't my strength. I didn't know how to run a business. I'm still seeking counsel, because numbers are not my strength. I am a creative visionary. I bring story to life through video. I sit with people in meetings and they tell me what they think is their concept or what kind of video they want, and I see it and then I execute. I don't look at financial statements and completely understand them and have that thorough aptitude for numbers. So really putting people in places that do have those strengths. And that becomes difficult, because when you're running your own business, it's, oh, well, I can't afford that, I'm just going to do everything myself. There are people out there that will mentor and volunteer and help you for free. There are a lot of business owners that, myself included now, that would love to take time to, let's chat about something for an hour. Let's problem solve. Let's work through something. We've been through a lot of things. And so as the trailblazers now, we're here to help. So there is help. And sometimes it just doesn't look like it. And then there's also the fear of somebody looking at my numbers, or somebody seeing my vulnerability and weakness, and that I can't do it all, and that I'm not strong enough, and it shows up as weakness or as being a failure. And that F word is there's this negative energy that's attached to the F word, failure. And if we are able to shift that paradigm, it is truly through our failures that we achieve the greatest successes. Like that's the truth.
Yeah. And failure really, and I know that we ascribe to a similar belief system in terms of how that looks. It's just the edge of what you've known. Right. And my belief is that failing is not falling down, it's staying down. We all fall down. But we have a choice about staying down.
Yeah.
Wow. So what is your next level challenge in terms of your own growth and development?
So it's funny, because some of my greatest fears that I deal with, that are ongoing, are actually not fear of failure, but rather fear of success. And that's
Ooh,
where my limiting beliefs come in and caps.
yeah.
And so through COVID, we were lucky enough to see growth.
Mm,
Video became a main way of communication. Companies, people needed to embrace video,
mhm,
whether it be training a person to light their home set, Zoom etiquette, speaking
yeah.
uh, for video as a platform, video production, award shows, online courses. It just exploded. We've been very, very busy, and we've been growing. And so the last year, year and a half, I've seen most of my work, which is
Mm.
ongoing. Like, this is not you receive a certificate and you're like, you're
Right.
done. It's just like, it's ongoing. Has been that fear of success, that fear of growth.
Mm,
I don't want my company to be too big, because then it's going to be more to manage, and then it's going to be more stressful for me. And I just want to keep it manageable, and thinking small, when
mm,
it doesn't have to be. We can continue to grow. I can put different people in place that can handle different responsibilities that don't fall back on me, as long as I set it up structurally properly now at the beginning.
mhm,
And so, really, again, strategically thinking about who I'm going to be putting in what roles and where, due to the fact that I don't want to be chained to my business. I don't want my business to define my identity. I'm a huge person of play.
mm.
I believe it is just as important as having a passionate career, being passionate about your career and work. And my work is play. So
Mm,
that's great, but it's not all of, you know, cup of tea. There are challenges every single day. There's
mhm,
client relations, there's cash flow challenges, there's all of these things that continue to come up. There's not perfection. I
mhm,
know for a fact that I don't want to be involved in the day to day in
mm,
my long-term plan. So where I'm at is breaking through some of those fear of success barriers to position myself to bring somebody in as a managing director, or as a CFO, or COO, or whatever that role title may be, so that I can level up to where I want to be, which is really as the CEO, as the visionary, overseeing
mm.
the bigger picture rather than the day to day.
I love that. And you speak to such an important point, I think, for business owners and entrepreneurs, is that often the limiting factor on your business is you. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. Right. And I know there was a point in time in my life where I'm like, what are you talking about? No, it's, it's this, that, whatever. But really and truly, it is that upper limit problem, right? That fear of success, that fear of failure, that fear of looking vulnerable, the feeling that I have to know it all. I need to be the superhero, right? I can't be vulnerable. I can't ask for help. And when you're the one who's trying to do and be everything, you're going to hit, you're going to hit a cap. You're going to hit a cap. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what has helped you in terms of taking off the cape? Because I think a lot of people, we look to other people and they look like they've got it all together, right? They're like, oh, they've got this amazing business, or they've got this great love life, or like they had a shower today, like whatever that looks like.
Not me.
But so I think we look to others and we compare our worst day to their best day, and we think that that's the truth of their life or our life. And so what would you say to people who are thinking like, oh my gosh, whoever I'm looking at as a model of inspiration, they've got it all together, I could never do that? What would you say to them?
I love that you brought this up, because it's something I hear very often. And it's maddening, in that I have a large social media exposure. We are constantly putting out videos. I'm a vice president of the Edmonton Business Association. I'm involved in the community. And so there's a lot of exposure. And when I meet women, especially for the first time, it is something that I hear so often,
Hmm.
in that, Jesse, you look like you have it all together. Like, you're doing so well and everything is so great. And I think that something that I would really like to work on as like human beings
Mm,
is sharing more of that truth. It's just
mhm.
that real authentic journey. And often I will answer or respond with like, funny, because I had a meltdown in the car in the parking lot right before coming in. Like, I have high anxiety.
Mm,
It's something that I work through on a daily basis. I'm developing tools through EFT and such, which is emotional freedom techniques, to really manage that. But
mhm.
I was at a point where I would be driving the car and I would have a panic attack and I had to pull over because I just couldn't
Mm,
even, I knew where I was going and I couldn't
yeah,
make a decision on what street to turn down to get there.
yeah,
And
yeah,
people don't look at me and see that, right? And I,
yeah.
I hear it all the time. None of us do. None
Mhm.
of us. So where I'm going with this is the sharing that I feel needs to happen much more often. The realness, the
Mhm.
genuine experience, without going into a negative energetic spiral. And
Mhm.
so what that looks like is being honest about your experiences, being honest about some of the challenges, but not turning it into a fueling of fire session where
Yeah.
it's comparing all of the negatives, but that it's like, okay, so we're going through this. And I was able to overcome it because I called a family member, or I was able
Mm.
to overcome it because I did some breathing and really try to have that sharing without the negative spiral. You know what I'm talking about, right? Because we can start
Totally.
bitching about our partner or
Yeah.
complaining about our work,
Yeah.
or the vacation wasn't exactly as we expected, rather
Yeah.
than making sure that the energetic frequency is on an upswing, right?
Yeah.
But sharing that I'm not perfect, life's not perfect,
Mhm.
things are challenging for all of us. And I think the
Mhm.
number one thing is we really can't compare ourselves to others. And
Mhm.
it's ingrained in us too. So
Yeah.
that's definitely a barrier that I think that all of us have work to do in, because it does come so naturally, when really the only one that we need to be comparing anything to is where we set our own bar and ourselves,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And striving to just be a better version of ourselves than we were the day before, and the day after that. And there's going to be slips, and there's going to be lapses, and there's going to be all of these two steps back,
Yeah.
but that the focus and the intention is on that forward momentum of personal self growth.
Yeah. And truly that's, what I believe becoming the heroine of your own life is about, is that you don't negate the challenges. You acknowledge the challenges, you acknowledge those fall on the floor moments. And yes, you don't try to spiritual bypass them. You feel the feelings, you allow those emotions to move through you, because otherwise it gets stored in your body as trauma, and you don't want that, right? So you allow
Mhm.
those, but then you pick yourself up. Well, I guess first of all, you recognize that you have a choice to pick yourself up and
Mm.
say, who do I want to be here? And so maybe the vacation wasn't what I thought it was. Maybe my partner is driving me crazy. Maybe I have a health thing I'm navigating. So yes, at the level of fact, these are happening, but who do I want to choose to show up as within this? How am I becoming the hero of my own journey? And really, I believe
Yeah.
it's knowing, first of all, who you are, what's important to you.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
awareness and acknowledgement and gratitude, which is not a switch. I heard a
Mhm.
term recently in regards to toxic positivity, which
Mm,
I thought was really
mhm,
powerful. It was actually
mhm,
through my daughter's coach, and Ashley Kumar, who I'm going to give a shout out to because she's
mm,
absolutely amazing. And she was talking about that emotional bypassing and that there's toxic
mhm.
positivity. So
Yeah.
when a child is experiencing something or at school and the girls aren't getting along, this was common for my mom. And I was just having this conversation with my cousin, to gaslight the situation
Mm, mhm.
with not without the intention of hurting me. But we will
Yeah.
do that in all of our relationships sometimes, where
Yeah.
rather than validating or affirming the feelings or emotions, it's either, oh no, they're not thinking, they're not talking about you, you know, don't think, you're just
Yeah.
imagining things. And is it a
Yeah.
story you're creating in your head? And maybe it
Yeah.
is, but that's not for us to call out other people on.
Mhm.
That's for them to
Mhm.
call themselves out on, right? So
Mhm.
there's that gaslighting that can occur. And then there's also the, like you said, like the emotional bypassing of the toxic positivity. So
Yeah.
just be happy. Let's think
Ah.
about things we're grateful for. Let's list 3 things we're grateful for. And when I
Yeah.
say this, I get these shudders because I've done
Yeah.
this with my daughter. I've done this,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
learning, I'm growing. And again, I asked for help because she's preteen and I don't know
Mm.
how to navigate this. So
Mhm.
I brought somebody in that gives me tools to learn this. And it's hard
Mhm.
because there's a whole lot that I've
Oh,
done
yes.
wrong, quote unquote, or could have done better. But I didn't
Yeah.
know. I didn't know
Yeah.
better. I
Yeah.
knew what I knew then, and now I know better. So I will do better,
Mhm.
Maya Angelou,
Mhm.
right? So it's it's just, we need to be delicate with each other as well in
Mhm.
some of that desire to, for other people to feel better, because you don't want them to be bringing you down, or you down, or your energetic vibe is kind of killing mine, by not doing that toxic positivity thing either. It's gratitude is not a
Mhm.
switch, it's a practice. And it
Yeah.
takes time to be able to rewire the brain, and that takes time too, right? You're actually
Yeah.
changing synapses, neurons,
Yes.
things are happening, and we need to acknowledge that. So it's a process.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, Jesse, that truly part of that process is I think being able to be present for ourselves, being present for the ups and the downs, being present for the challenges, being present for the vulnerabilities, the scary bits, the parts of ourselves that maybe we haven't been comfortable with acknowledging, and to allow them all to come into consciousness for us. And I believe that as we do that for ourselves, we then create the capacity to hold that for others. And as we can hold that, then there's that room for that expression, that discharge. And as we release that, then there's the opportunity to say, okay, well, what's here now? Right. But
Yeah, I love that.
and we
Creating
can
space.
creating space, and we can choose to stay in the stuff, right? And if people have chosen to do that up until now, that's okay, because we all, and you said this as well, we all do the best that we can at the level of awareness that we're operating from. But then as we expand our awareness, we have choices about how we want to show up to that. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So any last words you want to share for our listeners?
Just that we're all in this together, you know,
Mm,
and in this conversation, we're having this high level dialogue that could potentially even sound a bit preachy
mm,
and almost know it all. And the
yeah.
fact of the matter is that none of us know it all. And it's, this is the human experience, and
Mhm.
we're all here to help each other, and we are all interconnected, feeding off each other's energies, giving each other's energies. Everything is energy.
Yeah.
And that, just remember, so I try to remember, and I just talked about this with my team the other day, is
Mm,
I run a human first company. We're
mm,
humans first. We work together secondly.
yeah.
And that, I just, I love that we're all going through things that, I love the meme that we're all going through things that we don't necessarily see. And
Mhm.
so let's give each other that grace
Yeah.
and that empathy or sympathy or that compassion
Yeah.
that we would want ourselves, and to ourselves, I think,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
because oftentimes we talk to ourselves in a way that we would never speak to others. And I just, let's be
Mm.
kind out there. It
I
matters.
Yeah, it does matter. I love that. And thank you for that, for acknowledging that, and that the intent is absolutely not to sound preachy, and the intent really is to inspire and to share different stories of how I figured this out. Well, not that we ever figure it out, but how I'm figuring it out so far, and really inspiring other women to realize like, hey, if she can do it, I can do it. If she can do it, I can do it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you can.
Yeah. And you're worth it. And you're worth it. Yeah.
And you're good enough.
Yes, right. I love that. I love that. So thank you so much, Jesse. And in the show notes, I will include links to all of Jesse's social, so you can follow her on social, check out her website. She's going to have a download available for you. And as always, if you like this, I would appreciate your support. Like, subscribe, do the podcast things, and have a great day.
Do it. Do it.
Do it. Do it.